What happens when one of the leading Republican candidates for president appears on NBC and the conversation of the unborn comes up?
Their view is that all the way up into that, yet there should not be any legal protections.
There is no indication of Democrats pushing for that.
Specifically, which policies he's going to push back on and which policies he thinks are wrong in the public square. Now, again, this is a contentious conversation, and this video is not me endorsing Ron DeSantis. There's quite a few things I disagree with him on. But when it came to this specific conversation, it seems like NBC was so certain they were right, but were ultimately left holding an L. All right. So if you guys aren't keeping up with this entire debacle, this is very interesting stuff. And we got Ray with us, whose home state is Florida.
That's right.
So here is DeSantis on MSNBC, and this happened.
There's no evidence of Democrats pushing for
but
up until
their view is that all the way up into that, yet there should not be any legal protections.
There is no indication of Democrats pushing for that.
Well, yes.
Much of the DeSantis.
So that is what was said. His claim is that the Democrats want no restrictions on the option, the legal option, to terminate babies. Okay, that's his claim. She says that's false. That's her claim. That's false. And so,
a chief concern, the 6-week ban DeSantis signed in Florida. It's an issue Democrats have worked to use against him and other Republicans on the campaign trail. The governor has implied the issue should be left to individual states. So would you veto any sort of federal bill?
Here's the full clip. So would you veto any sort of federal bill
that tries to put a nationwide ban in place?
So we will be a pro-life president, and we will support pro-life policies. I would not allow what a lot of the left wants to do, which is to override pro-life protections throughout the country, all the way up really until the moment of birth in some instances, which I think is infanticide.
Well, actually, I got to push back on you on that, because that's a misrepresentation of what's happening. I mean, that 1.3% of a happen at 21 weeks or higher.
The DeSantis team thought it would be appropriate to bring up some receipts. And did they ever?
I would not allow what a lot of the left wants to do, which is to override pro-life protections throughout the country, all the way up really until the moment of birth in some instances, which I think is infanticide.
There is no indication of Democrats pushing for that.
Do you support any restrictions on a...
I don't. I've always believed...
Even in the third trimester?
Any limitation on...
No, I do not.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth. She has physical signs of that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified?
My bill would allow that, yes.
Do you believe that a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy up until the moment of birth?
Look, I think that happens very, very rarely. But at the end of the day, I believe that the decision over abortion belongs to a woman and a physician.
My question was about any limits at any point, you know, late term, anything?
You got to leave it up to the woman.
Up till now, my understanding is there wasn't a limit on when in a pregnancy a woman could receive an abortion. Have you set any limit on?
There are no limits.
There's no way that Democrats would ever push for such legislation without restriction. How dare you point out to the obvious? No restriction. That's not like, you know, people that are C-level Democrats. That's Bernie Sanders.
No, you're asking senators and judges, and
you're asking influential people, right? Now, to be fair, I will say this. I don't think everyone who votes pro-choice believes that.
Oh, absolutely
right?
not.
Destiny, who just debated Trent Horn, which you guys should all go watch this debate. Anyone that's like, I don't know, I'm pro-choice light, I'm pro-life light, go watch that debate and see the logical conclusions of those two different, very opposite incoherent streams. One's incoherent, one's coherent. Destiny would say, I think there should be a cutoff at 24 weeks, right? And he's like the leftist face of the internet right now. So even folks like that won't co-sign this. Yeah. But the issue is, these are the politicians. These aren't internet personalities. These are the people pushing through policy. These are the people that are allowing policy to happen.
Yeah, you know what's difficult about this whole conversation is that you have a group of people that will talk about the percentage of this actually happening, right?
Yep.
and put that at war with there needing to be protection.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Unpack that.
So they'll say like, hey, this is only happening, 1.3% of the time,
But in terms of it being past 20 weeks.
Past 20 weeks.
Okay.
And so what they'll say is that like, this rarely happens, so it doesn't matter, right? And ultimately it's up to the woman, right? And so what they're doing is they're putting, I feel like they're posing this idea that for a long time women were being controlled by groups of people, you know what I'm saying, throughout history, and their bodies and what they can and cannot do with their bodies. And they're putting this idea of like whether you're going to have control or not.
It's a binary.
It's like a binary.
Sure.
Versus saying, hey, yes, this rarely happens, right? But in the case that it does happen, right, should there be something in place, right, that protects that life and protects you, because it gets dangerous for you the later it comes. It comes to it.
Just because something is unlikely happening, it's only 1% of whatever the number is, that doesn't mean that it should be allowed in theory. What if the very things that Christian culture often dismisses as worldly actually aren't bad desires? What do I mean by that? It's obvious that the world values things like money, fitness, fame, and immediate gratification. But I like to propose that those natural human desires can actually be redirected with God's words and God's ways of doing things in order to bring glory to Him and serve our neighbor on this side of eternity. And I like to call this very concept God-driven ambition. And we'll be unpacking all of this at my very first live podcast in-person gathering happening August 26th in Oceanside, California. We'll have GodLogic Apologetics, Pastor Jeff Moores from Rhythm Church, John Keith, Trizzle Fitness, and hosted by my guy Ray Rock. Lock it in on your calendars right now. Saturday, August 26th in Oceanside, California at Rhythm Church. Click the button down below or go to RuslanLive.com to get more information and get your ticket now.
Right. Look, think about
like
this.
Legally speaking, I don't care if 99% of the time when people drink and drive, nothing happens. So we should just make it legal. I don't think there should be any restrictions against people drinking and driving. What's the big deal, right?
No, and
right?
think about this.
But that 1% where that mother driving a minivan with her 3 children gets killed is enough to say, hey, 100% of the time it should be illegal to drink and drive because there's other people involved.
Absolutely. And just think about this. We have precautions in movie theaters for stuff that most likely won't happen, like a fire. Right. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have a fire extinguisher and a fire protocol if a fire happens.
Right. Here's the thing that the pro-choice community seldom leaves in. Did you know that 70% of Americans do want restriction for?
That's right.
That's crazy, right?
Yep.
So those 70% would say they think Roe v. Wade should have stood. That same 70% also say, well, not the same 70%, but 70% still believe there should be restrictions.
Right.
So this notion that this is where most people are at is just not true. Most people don't land on this unrestricted, on by any means, do whatever you want perspective.
Yeah, and the notion that the majority of the people that are making these decisions and going out to vote are extreme right-wing Christians, you know what I mean, that are extreme nationalists as well. You know what I'm saying? This is also liberal Catholics. There's a lot of Catholics that are just, they're like, nah, we're going to disagree with this.
Yeah. I think it becomes very difficult for someone like me to co-sign voting, after seeing that, to co-sign voting for a Mayor Adams or a Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean? Just strictly in principle. Like, if you're okay with that, what else are you okay with? If you don't think there should be any restriction on that, what else are you okay with? It's hard, right? It's hard to compartmentalize that.
And listen to DeSantis. DeSantis said, look, on a federal level, I'm not into overturning it. But
he said that I wouldn't do a federal ban.
A federal ban.
Because it's over. Oh, Roe v. Wade already got overturned. The protection to get an abortion is already overturned.
But notice that he leaves it by state, right? So he's not being like belligerent, right? And so I think that it's so funny that nobody wants to mention that. You know what I'm saying?
That the fringe right candidate DeSantis is actually the moderate in this case.
Right. He's actually saying, hey,
we all intrinsically know that that's a baby in there. We all know that's a human in there. We just are conflicted on whose right do you weigh out more. And anyone that's ever looked at the procedure at a 12-week-old, which that's kind of what set off the modern day pro-life movement, right, is the Silent Scream documentary where they showed, you guys go look this up, they showed what this procedure looks like through a sonogram. Is that what's called, sonogram? And you could see the baby. It's a 12-week baby. I mean, it's 12 weeks, that's a baby in there. 8 weeks, that's that 10 fingers, 10 toes. Brainwaves. Well, brainwaves a little later. And so what happens is the same folks know intrinsically that that's a baby and that's wrong. Also are like, yeah, but they feel like, but it's also wrong to quote unquote force a woman into carrying through a pregnancy that she may not want to, in the same 1% of cases that are right? Hey, this is a segment from our daily after party stream. Consider partnering with us online for as little as $5 a month to get access to these daily after party streams completely unedited. You'll also get access to our podcast as they are streamed live into the community before anyone else gets to see them, get to interact with our guests, get access to our private Discord server, and a discount code for our store for as little as $5 a month. Ultimately, that will help towards helping us continue contextualizing the gospel using media and podcast here on YouTube. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.